I don't remember the exact moment she became more than just another face in my day. Maybe it was the way she held the blood pressure cuff like she'd been doing it her whole life, steady and unbothered. Or maybe it was the way she said my name, not careful, not careless, just like she already knew me. It started in the smallest place. The clinic waiting room. Beige walls, the hum of a vending machine, a clock that always seemed too loud. I'd been there twice before for the same checkup, routine stuff. Nothing dramatic. Nothing worth remembering. But she remembered me. Back again? She said when I walked in. I laughed too quickly. Guess I like the coffee here. Her smile wasn't wide. Just the corner of her mouth, like she didn't want to give too much away. I noticed her hand resting against the counter. No ring, just clean nails and a silver watch. My eyes flicked there before I could stop myself. She called me by my last name, formal at first. Then, when she saw me pause, she softened it. Daniel. Like she was testing the sound. I don't talk much in places like that. Usually I keep my head down, phone in hand, half writing messages I never send. But she asked simple questions, about sleep, about stress, about whether I'd been eating. All the things you're supposed to ask. And yet, the way she listened, it made me want to answer honestly, even when I didn't. The cuff tightened around my arm. I could feel her hand brush my sleeve, just for a second. Not intentional. Not meaningful, not really. Still, I caught myself holding my breath. You're a little fast today, she said, checking the monitor. Maybe I'm nervous. I meant it as a joke. It came out truer than I wanted. She looked at me then, really looked, and I swear it was only a heartbeat, but it felt longer. The rest of the appointment was quiet. A few notes on her clipboard. The scrape of her pen. My eyes drifted toward the thermos by her chair, the kind that keeps coffee warm for hours. She didn't touch it once. When she handed me the slip of paper with the follow-up date, her fingers brushed mine. Again, nothing deliberate. But I walked out replaying that single second more than anything she'd actually said. I didn't go home right away. I sat in the parking lot with the engine off, phone in my hand, thumb hovering over old conversations. People I hadn't reached out to in months. Friends who'd stopped asking if I wanted to meet up. I typed, "Funny day at the clinic. Nurse gave me a hard time about my pulse." Then I erased it. Who would I even send it to? Instead, I found myself staring at the slip of paper. Her handwriting was neat, practical, but she'd added a little underline beneath the date. Like she wanted to make sure I noticed. Or maybe that was just me wanting to believe it. The clock on my dashboard ticked louder than it should have. My coffee in the cup holder had gone cold. And in that ordinary stillness, I realized how long it had been since someone made me feel seen. I folded the paper once, then again, until it fit in my wallet. That night, just as I was about to set my phone down, a notification lit up the screen. Unknown number. One line. Don't forget, same time next week. And maybe try breathing slower. Her words. Her humor. Her presence, somehow slipping into the quiet spaces of my life. I stared at the message too long, heart running faster than it should. And for the first time in months, I didn't erase what I wanted to say back. The next week came faster than I thought it would. I caught myself checking the calendar more than once, as if the day might slip away unnoticed. It was just another appointment. That's all it was supposed to be. When I walked in, she was at the counter again, flipping through patient charts. Her hair was pulled back this time, loose strands falling forward as she looked up. "Back on schedule," she said. "Guess you listened." I raised the slip of paper from my wallet like proof. Didn't want to get scolded twice. That half smile again. Not wide, not forced, just hers. In the small exam room, it was quiet except for the hum of the fluorescent lights. She poured hot water into a paper cup and set it beside me without asking. "Tea. Chamomile, from the faint smell. Better for your nerves," she said. "Coffee doesn't help." I held the cup, warming my hands more than drinking. "You're assuming I'm nervous," You admitted it last time. She wasn't wrong. The cuff tightened around my arm again, and I noticed her fingers lingered for half a second too long when she adjusted the strap. Maybe it was habit. Maybe not. Your heart's calmer today, she said softly, watching the numbers. Then, almost to herself, must be nice to be 20-something and still believe it'll all work out. I didn't answer right away. She wasn't looking at me, and the weight in her voice wasn't meant for a reply. But I heard it. Something in the way she said it, like she wasn't talking about me at all. You don't think it works out? I asked before I could stop myself. She hesitated, then capped her pen. I thought so once. A pause. But people change. Promises change. Her eyes flicked to the silver watch on her wrist, and for a moment she seemed far away. Older than the 40-something she looked. Worn, not in appearance, but in the way she carried silence. I wanted to ask more. I didn't. Instead, I sipped the tea and burned my tongue just enough to make her laugh when I winced. You don't have patience for hot drinks, she teased. Or for waiting, apparently, I said, meaning it as a joke. But her expression shifted, not quite sad, not quite amused. Something between. The appointment ended, like it always did, but neither of us moved right away. She stood with my chart in hand, tapping the pen against the folder. I folded the napkin I'd been holding into smaller and smaller squares, just to keep my hands busy. You should take better care of yourself, she said at last. Trying to, I replied. Then, quieter. Easier when someone notices. Her eyes met mine then, steady, searching. Longer than before. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. When she handed me the paper slip again, her fingers brushed mine, just like before. But this time, her thumb lingered. Just enough that I knew it wasn't an accident. The third visit felt different from the start. Maybe because I'd been thinking about it too much. Maybe because I caught myself rehearsing what I might say, only to throw it all away the second I walked in. She noticed right off. You're quiet today, she said, not accusing, just observing. I shrugged, sat down. Didn't sleep much? She nodded, jotting something in the chart. But I saw her eyes flick to mine, quick, as if she wanted to ask more and didn't. The silence stretched. She poured tea again, slid it across the counter. This time she didn't explain it. Just left it there between us. I wanted to thank her. Instead I said, Guess you don't give coffee to everyone, huh? Her mouth twitched. You think you're special? The way she said it, playful, but softer underneath, made my chest tighten. Then the door creaked. Another nurse leaned in, younger, cheerful. Need anything, Claire? Claire. Her name. Finally spoken out loud, though not to me. She straightened, professional again. I'm fine. Thanks. The door closed. Silence filled the room differently now. She adjusted the cuff on my arm, more businesslike than usual. I felt her pulling back, hiding in the roll. I wanted to say her name, just once, to test the sound of it on my own tongue. But the words stuck. Instead, I watched her hand on the cuff. Steady, practiced. My eyes lingered longer than they should. She noticed. Her fingers hesitated, just a fraction of a second, before finishing the strap. Heart rate's higher again, she murmured. Maybe you make people nervous. I tried to smile. Her eyes flicked up. For a moment, something unguarded passed between us, then she looked away, busying herself with the monitor. I almost laughed at myself. 20-something, acting like a kid. She was older. Wiser. She had her life, her world. I was just another name on her clipboard. And yet, when the appointment ended, I didn't stand right away. She didn't tell me to. We sat in the same small room, the clock ticking too loud. Finally she closed the folder, set it aside. Daniel! Her voice caught, quiet, unfinished. I leaned forward, not much, but enough to notice her breath catch too. And for one suspended second, I thought, maybe. But the hallway echoed with footsteps. Someone passing by, voices muffled. She pulled back quickly, the moment collapsing between us. "Take care of yourself," she said, too brisk, standing before I could answer. I nodded, throat tight. We didn't touch this time. Not even a brush of fingers. But when I left, I could still feel the space between us, the almost of it. The kind of almost that stays longer than anything that actually happens. It wasn't in the clinic this time. I saw her outside, at dusk, sitting on the bench by the side entrance with her thermos. Work was done. No clipboard, no uniform coat. Just her, shoulders a little slouched, watching the last streaks of sun bleed into the parking lot. I almost kept walking. Almost. But she noticed me, and her mouth curved just enough to mean I couldn't. "You don't usually come this way," she said. I was heading home. My voice caught on the pause, too obvious. "Thought I'd cut through." She tapped the bench beside her. A small gesture. I sat. The thermos sat between us like a third person. She twisted the lid, poured into the little metal cup, and handed it over without asking. "Coffee, not tea." "Bitter." "Still warm." We sat in silence. The kind that says more than words. I found myself glancing at her hands, the way she rubbed her thumb across the rim of the cup, restless. "You don't talk much," she said finally. "Neither do you." That made her laugh, quietly. A laugh with weight behind it. I don't know what made me say it, but the words came out before I could stop them. "Do you ever wish things had turned out different?" Her hand stilled. She didn't answer right away. "I used to," she said softly. "But wishing, it wears you down after a while. Better to keep moving." Her voice cracked just enough that I knew she wasn't talking about me. "Not really. Divorce, maybe? A life rerouted." The shadows in her silence filled the blanks. "Is that why you stay busy?" I asked. She looked at me then. Not sharp, but exposed, like I'd stepped too close without meaning to. Her eyes lingered. "You shouldn't notice things like that," she whispered. "I can't help it." The air felt heavier, like even the breeze had stopped. My chest tightened, pulse loud in my ears. I wanted to reach for her hand resting on her lap, but I didn't. I folded mine together instead, too tight. Her gaze dropped to them. "You're too young to get tangled in someone else's ruins." "I don't care." My voice was low, rough. I hadn't meant to say it that way. Her breath caught, almost like a laugh that never formed. She shook her head slowly, but her eyes softened, and that was worse. Or better. I couldn't tell. For a moment, it felt like the world had shrunk to this bench, this hour, the faint smell of coffee between us. And I thought, if I just leaned closer, if I just said her name. But she shifted, set the thermos down, and looked straight ahead. "Don't," she said. Not sharp. Just fragile. I stayed still. The silence stretched, taut, aching. And then she asked, barely above a whisper, "Daniel, what is it you really want from me?" The next week, I went back. Same day, same time. The waiting room was busier than usual, the clock ticking louder than it had any right to. But she wasn't there. A younger nurse called my name. Smiled politely, too bright. Took me through the motions, cuff, questions, clipboard. Efficient. Impersonal. I kept glancing toward the door, half expecting Claire to appear, to slip in like she'd forgotten something. But she didn't. When it ended, I asked, trying to sound casual. "Claire's not here today?" The nurse blinked. "Oh, she switched shifts. Family stuff." Family? The words sat heavy. Outside, I found myself walking toward the bench anyway. Empty. The thermos wasn't there. Just dry leaves skittering across the concrete. I sat for a while, phone in my hand. Opened the text thread. Her message was still there. "Don't forget, same time next week. And maybe try breathing slower." My thumb hovered over the keyboard. "Everything okay? Miss seeing you today. Do you want..." I deleted them all. A week later, same thing. She wasn't there again. A different nurse, another routine check. The words between us had been replaced with charts and numbers. But then, as I was leaving, I caught sight of her down the hall. Not in scrubs. In plain clothes. Standing with a boy 17, maybe 18. He said something that made her laugh, real and unguarded. A son, I realized. Her son. She saw me before I could look away. For a second, her smile faltered. Not gone. Just dimmed. She touched the boy's shoulder, guiding him toward the door, and I understood without her saying it. There was a world she carried that I wasn't part of. That night, I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused. Like life forgot to finish the sentence. I typed one more message. Just her name. Claire, and then I closed the phone. Screen black. Words unsent. The seat beside me stayed empty. It was raining the night it happened. Not a storm, just steady, soaking rain that made the streets shine under the lamps. I saw her by chance, outside the clinic, closing her umbrella as she struggled with her keys. She looked smaller without the uniform, tired but softer somehow. I hesitated. Could have kept walking. Should have, maybe. But my feet stopped. Claire. She turned, surprised, umbrella dripping against the pavement. For a second, either of us spoke. Then she sighed, half a laugh. You shouldn't be out here. Neither should you. I shrugged. It wasn't clever, but it made her smile. She unlocked the door but didn't go in. Instead, she leaned against the frame, arms crossed, rain tapping gently on the canopy above us. You've been avoiding me, I said. Not accusing. Just true. Her eyes lowered. I thought it was better. For who? She didn't answer. The silence stretched, heavy with things unsaid. I shoved my hands in my pockets, felt the folded slips of paper still there. Every appointment, every underline. I'm not stupid, I said quietly. I saw him. Your son. Her head lifted, startled. Then softer. Yes. Something in her face shifted, protective, cautious. I almost pulled back. Almost said it didn't matter. But the words kept pushing. I didn't want you to think I was playing at something. I know I'm younger. I know it's messy. My throat tightened. But it's not a joke to me. Her eyes searched mine, and for once she didn't look away. Do you have any idea what you're asking? What it would cost me? I didn't. Not fully. But I nodded anyway. I just know what it costs to keep quiet. The rain filled the space between us. She looked down at her hands, flexed her fingers as if deciding whether to reach or retreat. Finally, she whispered, You make me feel seen. And that scares me more than it should. I exhaled, not realizing I'd been holding my breath. For a moment, all I could do was nod slowly, like agreeing with something I couldn't put into words. Neither of us moved closer. Neither of us needed to. Her hand brushed my sleeve, just once, deliberate this time. And with the softest, almost broken smile, she said, Okay. It didn't happen all at once. Not with a kiss, not with a line that changed everything. It happened slowly, in the in-between spaces. I started coming less for the checkups and more for the small excuses. Dropping off a book I thought she might like. Bringing coffee when I knew her thermos was probably empty. Sitting on the same bench at dusk, waiting to see if she'd join. And she did. Not always. Not right away. But enough. Sometimes we sat in silence, sipping tea from paper cups. Other times she told me stories, not dramatic ones. Just little pieces of her life. Her son's favorite music, how she burned the first cake she ever tried to bake, the way her father always carried peppermints in his coat pocket. And in return, I told her about my own half-started life, jobs I didn't love, messages I never sent, the way I hated mornings except for the strange calm of 8:47 a.m., when the world felt paused. She remembered that. Brought it up later like it mattered. 8:47, she'd say, tapping her watch with a smile. Time to breathe slower. We never rushed. Weeks stretched into months. She kept her distance when she needed to. I pulled back when I had to. But each time, somehow, we found our way back to the bench, or the clinic hallway, or the small kitchen where she once poured me tea in a chipped mug and told me, simply, "This is easier with you here." No fireworks. Just steady warmth, like holding a cup between your hands on a cold morning. Now, when I think back, I don't picture the almost moments, the near touch, the silence that almost broke us. I picture the bench, the rain, the coffee gone cold. The little rituals that became ours. And I realize, love didn't arrive all at once. It settled, slow and certain. The nurse who once checked my pulse doesn't need to anymore. She just sits beside me, steady as ever. And somehow, I breathe easier. Did this story stay with you? What kind of quiet, real love stories do you want to hear next? Ch1